I'm
Rawr.
angry about cats.
When did we all get this dumb? Almost only counts in horseshoes, hand grenades, and nuclear warfare. I don't see any bodies, so it doesn't count.
I'm angry about cats.
I'm the chef. I want to hear one thing. Yes, chef. Come on, man. Use your brain. The Why I'm Angry podcast starts now. All right. Look at that. So prepared. Didn't have my mic ready and set for you guys. I just did an update, so I'm sure that everything will work smooth and excitingly. Let me set a little. All right. And yeah, here we are, the Why I'm Angry podcast. This is the chef, and here in the Freestyle Man Cave studio. And, if you got any questions, send me an email. If you're on right now while I'm live, you can get in the comment sections. I'm going to try to get into most of them here. So, all right. So if you send me a comment, I'll try to interact with you. This is going to kind of be a little different because I don't have a ton prepared, and so I'm going to try to kind of catch up. And so what I've got is what I'll be bringing, what I can kind of find as we go, and I'm gonna kind of give you a little insight into what I do to prepare, or not prepare, and how things go. That being said, email whyimangrypodcast@gmail.com. For anybody on the podcast that doesn't see it on the screen and stuff, who's not watching it live, Why I'm Angry Podcast @gmail.com gets you can contact me straight up. I check the email every day, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day, and that gets done. And then also send us any articles that you want us to go over, and either I will or one of the guys will. I know that we're going to start doing some more like just reaction videos of articles and things of that nature, so that the other guys can get in. All of them are kind of going through some different things and stuff like that. Buying houses, getting married, changing jobs, just some major life adjustments. So you're not going to see them on quite as often until they can figure out. And honestly, that's kind of what we're going to talk about in this episode is, honestly, we all struggle with things, and I struggle with ADHD pretty heavily. And so that's kind of where I'm at this week is I have been back and forth on everything, just kind of up and down and everything. And if you see a week or two where we don't, put out a podcast, it's either because I don't feel like I'm prepared enough, and that could be because I wasn't able to kind of sit down and do it. And that kind of comes from a number of things. We have a lot of things going on in our house, outdoor projects and indoor renovations and things, and just the whole life type stuff. And we also have, a 2-year-old, and we have a garden that, is very demanding. And so it seems like March kind of bogs us down. March, May, sometimes July. I think June got us a little bit this year. But that's kind of life. And honestly, it's like I said, I kind of struggle with the ADHD, and it's actual. It's not, haha, I have ADHD. It's it's actually diagnosed ADHD, and I honestly don't believe in taking a bunch of medication that isn't going to prolong your life. And if I had something like, I don't know, bipolar disorder or something like that, or something mental disorder wise that I needed to take it to stay, on the level, um, then I would, honestly, I would try or probably take it. But I don't take, I just don't take anything for the ADHD. I took it for a while as a kid. It uh, it honestly it leveled me out so much that I just was a walking zombie. And I don't want to be a walking zombie. Um, I'm fairly creative, and if you don't like, we can all joke that we have ADHD, and we all have some sort of. We're probably all semi on the spectrum. It's not like it used to be where like you have it or you don't. It's more like with everything. We found that everybody has a form or a focus of some sort of spectrum. So if you don't show symptoms of autism, you're probably very, very, very low on the spectrum. If you don't show, if you have, able to focus and attention switch and move and groove in your day and get things accomplished and stuff, then you're probably low on this spectrum of, of the of ADHD or something like that. If and so I think we all kind of. Sorry, I got a text message, and this is kind of the ADHD thing kicking in again. That just if I see something, it's funny. It's like squirrel, but it is like squirrel. And so a lot of times, what happens is I'll get focused on something else, or I have to give myself a focus that I know I can break away from easily enough, or a focus that is just it's one of the symptoms is having laser focus on things, and then you can't break that out without being frustrated. And if you know somebody, that has said or diagnosed with ADHD, and you see them being frustrated, you know, that's that's probably because they're having troubles either switching that attention, or getting or the fact they're upset that they can't get back to that focus or that thing that they have that focus on. Um, and with me, I know I have so much to get done, and I'm working on all of these different things. And the one thing that is good about ADHD is that you just, you kind of work as you see things. And so a lot of things get worked on. And luckily with the projects right now, they're not projects that can get finished right now. My garden isn't finished today. Um, but it's something I can work on, and then I work on, and I feel like, okay, I accomplished something, and that helps build from there. And a lot of people go through that, I guess, building from, just, getting up and you make your bed as an accomplishment and stuff like that. And so I struggle. My biggest struggle is routines. And so this podcast, it's run almost five full years. Um, and that's a pretty big accomplishment. We aren't doing it every week, and that's one thing. Life does get in the way, and like I said, sometimes my ADHD beats me. And I even text my wife this week that on Tuesday that, I was just, I was feeling uninspired, not not ready to go, and ADHD was taking over. And sometimes ADHD isn't just, having that laser focus and that wanting to do this or just whatever you're interested in is it's also not being interested in anything. And, just wanting to procrastinate and shut it all out. And I told her I just wanted to go to bed and just leave it all, just leave it all for tomorrow. And obviously I fought through it. I fought the good fight. I didn't win, but I didn't also lose. I didn't go to bed and just let it beat me. So here we are on the podcast, getting it out to you guys, getting some information out here. Looking through the emails. Um, it looks like Harris has chosen a running mate, and honestly, it is kind of a doozy. So I read an article earlier this week, about this who's going to be her running mate and stuff. Um, and they were saying something about that she could pick up the guy from Pennsylvania, the governor from Pennsylvania, and he could maybe pull that back in, and he's a little more centrist, and he could bring in the more moderate style voters and stuff. But she went full send, and it looks like she's going to pick Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate in 2024. Yeah. So he has a connection with rural voters because he's in Minnesota, I guess. I don't know. He's a former high school teacher. He's a National Guard veteran. He served as a representative of Minnesota for about 12 years from 2007 to 19. And he's been a state governor since 2019. He is known for policies such as removing abortion restrictions, legalizing recreational marijuana, providing universal free schools. That seems like, yeah, he's connected with the rural voter. Walz has also faced criticism for the state's response to COVID-19 and for his handling of the George Floyd protests. So remember, since 2019, this guy has been in office as a governor. So with George Floyd, where they burnt hundreds, almost $500 million worth of property damage, where they and that's billion with a B, $500 million. Think about how much, think about that the properties around you. That Walmart is probably worth, $2 to $8 million, and that's $500 million. That's $500 million. So that's like they burnt somewhere around 8 Walmarts. I mean, Target. All kinds of things like that. So he handled it well. This thing that I'm reading says for the first time since 2004, both major parties will feature military veterans on the ballot. Walz, the opponent J.D. Vance, service records could potentially resonate strongly with voters. As a recent study found, nearly 90% of U.S. adults express favorable opinion of veterans. Well, I mean, unless we're idiots, unless adults are now completely moronic, you should have a favorable opinion of veterans because, for one, they went out and fought for your life, for your livelihood, for your freedom, for the ability for you to say all this stupid crap, to breathe all this stupid air that you're taking up, and for all of that. So if you don't have a favorable opinion of veterans, then you probably just leave the country, because those are the guys that made this, made your opinions worthwhile or even able to be seen. Because I don't know if if you've been around a little while, but if you haven't been around the podcast a while, you might not know that in other countries, your opinion doesn't count for anything. Countries like China, they don't want to hear your opinion. They don't want to know your opinion. They don't even want to know that you have an opinion. And in all honesty, you don't have an opinion, and it doesn't matter because they don't care. It's not a democracy. And if they pretend to be a democracy by having a vote or whatever, it's not real. It's kind of like your opinion. It's not facts. It's not real. But here in America, we have millions and millions of soldiers who have fought and died and come back not the same as they were, because killing someone isn't in real life isn't like killing someone in a video game. You're a changed person. You've taken a life, one of the more precious things in the world. So if you're in that and you do that, then there's some sort of responsibility to have a favorable opinion towards a veteran. We have a responsibility that if we're not veterans, to hold a veteran in a little higher esteem than ourselves. I mean, that person went over and fought. Now, Tim Walz, his veteran is National Guard duty, so he didn't see fighting time, where JD Vance saw quite a bit. But both veterans appreciate your veteran status, but beyond that, it doesn't seem like you have. I mean, being a teacher is a big thing, but he sounds like he's one of those referendum teachers, one of those teachers that just, they're out there to push their agenda, to get their agenda pushed, and that kind of thing. So, am I surprised? The article I was reading said that this, picking Tim Walz is picking is making their election card a California dream. Oh, come on. We don't need a California dream. We don't need a California nightmare in America. California can't fund itself. California can't police itself. California can't even figure out where all the homeless people are coming from. So, California is bought and paid for by China. Ask the San Francisco mayor. It's just, we don't want that. I mean, no, like, I was talking to my father-in-law this week, and I said, there are still more, and we know that because they had to make up an amount of votes last election that would have beat Obama. They had to make up that many votes to win the election. Like, you can't tell me that more people came out and voted for Biden and Obama, or Biden and Trump that year than who had who had voted for Obama the 4 years, the 8 years before, 4 years before, 8 years before, whatever. So that just, that just goes to show you, that, I feel like I feel like the presidential wise, I mean, I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna go out and do my thing, but I feel like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, and that one basket has got 3 holes in it, and your eggs are falling out. And there's a good chance that you're not going to get, you know, the favorable option. And so honestly, I feel like voting for making sure that you know who your congressperson is, and making sure that you're holding them to the fire, and making sure that, you're voting the best option for your congressperson, that you're getting in and voting at the primaries, you're getting in and you're if you go to town hall meetings, I know that Warren Davidson was having a town hall meeting tonight in Cincinnati, and I actually I've talked to him also a few times, and really like him. I get his email every week, or I think it's every week, and it just basically tells everybody what he's done or what he's doing in the area, and then if there's major votes and stuff like that in Washington, what they're voting on and stuff like that. So really, really seems like a really good guy. You never know a guy until you really know a guy, but at least this way, at least I know who my representatives are. And try as we must, or try as we can't have, we've been trying to get rid of Sherrod Brown for a while. And, I'm not, I obviously am not high up in the party. I'm not even really a full-fledged member of the Republican Party. But you know, to give us, a, high, the Moreno is, he has the money. He's a businessman. He's got the backing. He is the person. Like I don't have any problems with Moreno as a person to go, to try to get elected. But we had another person in the primary that had a little more name recognition, and I feel like right now, if you've got two guys that are both going to be conservative, both going to hold the line and toe the conservative line, you have to take the person who has better name recognition, and you have to put some money behind them, and you have to do it. Because right now, elections are won, and not right now, but always elections have been run or won by name recognition. President Reagan was an actor. He was in some major films at that time. And, you know, Eisenhower was a war hero, and Kennedy had built this great big name for himself. So, as time has gone, we have, we just said we've built up, we've um we as a people vote for a name, and that's it. You vote for a name, and that's how we elect them. So that's why Trump has been so successful, is that he has a name, and that he's built a following based on that name. He has the money to back it, and there's two things you got to do. You got to have some recognition. You got to have a name. And that's why I said with this no labels group, that I've kind of followed a little bit, kind of watched the background of this no labels group, and they were so disappointed that they didn't have a presidential candidate. And it was like, who cares? Let's get 5 or 6 good congressional seats. Let's try to get 1 good congressional seats the first year or now. Let's try to get 2, good congressional seats or, something like that where we can build the name recognition for the group. That way they get the money but coming in and they can start building name recognition for the people. You could with a group like the no labels, you could bring in, high profile people to run and they're running off of their own platform as opposed to, oh no, that guy's he's too conservative, he's too left wing, he's too right wing. You actually say this is what we're going to do, and you talk out your plan. So I think we shoot for the presidency, and honestly, most of the power is held by the congressional seats. And I was watching the ABC coverage of I think it was the Black Journalists Convention or whatever, and they had Trump there, and they had asked him a couple questions, and it was the first question come right out the gate and said, "Why do you keep saying that black people should love you because that you're keeping the Mexicans out because they keep taking anybody flooding across the border, the illegal aliens are taking their jobs." And he said, "Well, they're taking everybody's jobs. They're taking jobs from everybody." And he got a little snippy with her and with the person and said that was a rude and kind of condescending question or whatever in his way. And but in the grand scheme of things, it's not the president who legislates. It's the president that executes the laws. And honestly, if we executed all of the laws that we have right now, we could keep a vast majority of the illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, people who are coming into the country illegally. If you feel like I'm being too harsh on them and calling people illegal, but we could keep most of those people where they're supposed to be, and coming in legally if we just executed the laws that we have the way they're supposed to be executed, and we just go from there, just hit the ground with the laws that we have. But we don't do that. We ask for more. We ask for walls. We ask for to not have to send you know send people back. We send them to different cities all over the place, and and then we complain that there's too many of them out there and too many people just flooding the borders and stuff. But we're not executing the laws. And so we could execute the laws, and we could keep everything going, but really the power is in Congress. If you want to make laws, if you want to legislate. And that's what these guys were talking about. This one guy, one black journalist was on there, and he's talking about how maybe, the question was right off the bat, and maybe we didn't give him any time to ease into the questions or whatever, but it was a pressing question, and he just said that maybe we should answer those questions, and but people need one thing he did say that I thought was semi-intelligent was that he said people need to start thinking of these things without their emotions. They need to stop thinking about these things, the government and the laws being made with their feelings. That if we take it for face value, what it actually is, then we would be able to realize that it's not a it's there this isn't against anyone. This isn't about a fight against each other. This is this is all about, politics and power. And so if you get on if you're looking at everybody's stance on things, and you take their stance, you take out the voice that they put in it, the inflection points, and you just read basically the text message, then who do you stand behind? No mean tweets, no whatever. You can't honestly say that the things that Biden has done stand up to the level of president, because we're not fighting a war in Ukraine, but there is a war in Ukraine. It's not that he's been so great that, and there's never going to be peace on earth. Like, never total peace. Well, till the last days. But in that, but in that we just need to make sure that, it's not about our feelings. It's about what's best for the country. I'll tell you that Trump isn't my favorite politician. Is he the best person on the ticket? He's not the most conservative, but he's the one that's most likely to be elected, that's at least going to help the country. If you're out there saying that this was one thing I saw today or this week, and I sent myself a message so that I could go back and talk about it a little later. Let's see if I got it here. Nope, that's not it. There it is. So this is part of what people don't understand with, with your judging people about how they live their life, or what their decisions are. And if you see somebody with way more than you have, then that person must be bad, and that person is just killing the world, or killing the environment, or holding someone else back. But you don't realize that they're creating jobs. They're building businesses. They're investing in things that put food on other people's tables. Like, if you don't do anything but work for somebody, you're doing nothing but putting food on your own table and putting food on that guy's table. So if you want to be like all about we can't help the big guy gets everything. The man gets everything. Well, if you're just working a job, that's all you're doing is giving it to the man. And nothing about it. But if you're going to whine about it, you know, then do something about it. Create your own company making whatever you make right now in a better quality, in a better style, in a better whatever, better design, and get it done and work it out. Figure it out. That's honestly that's kind of what I did with the restaurants. Is that all I was doing is working for somebody else who was either less intelligent or had less time invested in it and less knowledge about how to do things, and I was making them money. And so I left, I got out, I got my own deal going. I made my own money. I made my money for myself. And one, I proved that I could do it to myself, and two, made it for myself, made my own living. Gave myself a paycheck instead of paying somebody else or working hard for somebody else to give me a paycheck, which is fine. But when you complain about the man and you're the one, getting either the handout from the man or working that job for somebody, and you want to complain about that person having a jet or killing the environment in whatever way they see fit, there's another side to it. So I got to saw this post on um, Facebook of this jet. I'm sure you've seen posts like this or whatever, but it says a guy looked at this guy's airplane and he said, "I wonder how many people could be fed for the price of that airplane." And I mean that's a good thought. If you have an airplane and you have $500,000 or a couple $1,000,000 for an airplane, depending on how big it is, if it's a big one or whatever, and yeah, you could probably take that money and have, but you didn't solve world hunger. That's the Elon Musk, like 5 or 10 years ago, sent an a or a guy said somebody said something about you know where he could have spent his money on fixing world hunger or something like that, and he said, "Tell me," he goes, "Tell me the amount of money it's going to cost to solve world hunger." And he goes, "I'll write the check today." And he goes, "Is it $78 billion? Is it $1 trillion?" He goes, "I will figure it out, and we'll write that check right out of the business account or whatever, and we'll solve world hunger right now." But there isn't. I like. It's not a simple problem. It's not how many people could you feed with the airplane. And so he replied that he wasn't sure how much he could feed with the price of the airplane, but he said it fed a lot of families at the Dassault factory where it was built. He said, "I'm sure it fed a bunch of families at the rolled aluminum. Oh, that rolled aluminum at the Alcoa factory." He said it surely fed a lot of people at the Honeywell factory, which I have a close personal friend that works with Honeywell and their mechanic side of things, keeping the engines running and stuff like that, where the experts built the turbines. He said it fed a whole company for weeks when I had them build me a new interior. It feeds the families of the linemen that fuel it. And it's all of that. All of that goes into a capitalist system. Like if everybody is working and creating something, then all of those things, work together. Everybody's got a share of the money. And that money just continues to get greater and greater as you go. It's the person who falls behind, who steps back and says, "Oh, I don't want to work anymore." That runs out of money. In a full capitalist system, if you create the greatest product, if you continue to create the greatest product, you continue to feed yourself. You continue to have the money because you have the best product. People are going to want to buy it. You don't need subsidies. You don't need handouts. And honestly, if we continued to do that, if the food cost went up because farmers had to buy $1 million tractors and things of that nature to be able to create enough foods for us all to eat, then we would all have the money to cover it because products would go up, costs would go up, and we would be able to all of us would end up having more money because we charged more for the product part that we were at. And it wouldn't matter in the end how expensive things got, how much inflation got, because you would be able to cover it. And there wouldn't be the inflation because the value of goods would be the value of goods. And it's not the same loaf of bread that we bought 3 years ago is now worth, is now cost, $3 or $5, and it's still worth a buck. I mean, it's still the same bread. But that, putting that in, now you've got the value, you've got maybe more value of labor, and so that's why it would be $3. Where now, where back then, in a full capitalist system, that would be the difference. You wouldn't have this just, passing of everybody would pass the buck to build a bigger, better deal. But right now we're just passing the buck. There's nothing new invented. There's nothing better invented. We still have freaking Microsoft Windows. We still have, you know, we still have Mac computers. Where's where's the new operating system that is better? Linux isn't new. It's the same hard to figure out programmer developer, you know, system that we had 10, 15 years ago. There's just nothing new. And he said, and this person said that's the difference in the capitalism, welfare, and the welfare mentality. When you buy something, you put money into people's pockets, and that's where we've talked about, changing the taxes over to the flat tax. Well, right now we just pay a level of tax right off the top. You just have to give it to the government. And there's no tax on the goods and services that you get. We're paying the government right off the top of our paycheck, and then we're paying a tax on the goods and services we get. Where if you paid a flat tax, there's no getting out of it. Just because you're a giant corporation or you're a giant person with a lot of money, the more you buy, the more tax you would pay. The more you consume, the more tax you would pay. And so to lower your taxes, consume less, which seems like That would be good for the environment. Seems like that might be good for the world because it would be an incentive to consume less, to build your own garden, to make your own things. But if you think about it, then they wouldn't be able to control you. Then they wouldn't be able to take your money and take it right out of your hand as you're working. Like, I mean, think about this. If you pay 25% tax, every dollar you make, you get to take home 75%. Thanks, government. Thank you, Uncle Sam, for letting me take home 75%. That seems like a great majority, right? Well, yeah, but why do they get to take 25% of your taxes, of your paycheck? Did they do anything to I mean, do you have a right to a job in this country? No. You have to get up every day and you have to go out to your job. You paid for all of the training that it took to get that job. You paid for all the schooling. You did all of the work. The government didn't do crap to get a dollar, 25 cents of every dollar that you make. That's why people are angry about the taxes. That's why we don't want to give the government any more. Is that if there's a 20 or 15 even, they allow you to have 85% of your pay. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's more than God requires from you. The Bible says give a tenth to God, and the government gets 15%, and that 15% you don't even get to see. Like, it's not in your bank account, and then and then at the end of the year, they're like, "Okay, tabulate it up." No, they just right off the top. Now, they do that because if you didn't, or if they didn't, you're not used to paying a giant tax bill at the end of the year. And so you wouldn't take that 15% every month or every week or every 2 weeks and set it in an account that raises 5% or 4% every quarter or every month and gain that interest, and then at the end of the year you be able to pay them and then have still a small chunk left over for starting the next year. Sounds like a good idea though, doesn't it? So that's where this is. That's where the welfare mentality came from. Is we give them the money and then they're supposed to just do whatever we do. But they didn't earn any of that money and they don't give us back 15% of our money worth in whatever they do for us. Or 20% of, depending on what state you live in, your state, is you almost have to consider that rent. And that's why I tell you, you don't honestly own your house. You're just renting a location. Even if you rent a place, you're just leasing a lease on top of a lease because whatever you make on top of that, you're going to put 50% into that house, and then you're going to put 25% into your car, and then 15% goes to the government or 20% depending on what you make. No wonder people can't afford to live anymore. You got 5% to live off of. And, honestly, if you're a Christian trying to do the right thing and you're throwing 10% into the offering plate every week or every other week, you're 5% down. So either you gotta figure out you're gonna live in a crappier house, you're gonna drive a crappier car, or you know You're not going to give God what he's due, and because the government's taking it right off the top. You don't even get to see it anymore. And honestly, if I were the government, or if I were, if I were a a company that charged you rent, I'd I'd try to get you to take it right out of your check too, because there's no guarantee that at the end of the month you're going to make a decision to pay me, or you're going to make a decision to pay whoever you're renting from, or pay that big bill because you're down 5%, or you're down, you know, you're going to cut somewhere, and maybe you give me 5% less every month, and, you know, then I don't get it. So I'm definitely going to try to take it out of your bill, out of your check. And so the government sets it up, takes it right out of your check. So, welcome. Great place to be. If you didn't realize you were in a welfare state, well, we're here. This is what we're at. But if you thought, but and that's what it said. That's basically what the story was about. Is it was being, if you're in if you are buying things from people, you're giving people the dignity that their job has some kind of self worth, that the whatever they're creating, whatever they're building is theirs. Is they built that, and it was worth the money that you paid for it. And that's honestly the unintended consequence of capitalism, of not being in a welfare state. I mean, you can see over here where they give you the money, or you can go over here where you're creating something and you're getting paid for it. And you're creating something of value if you're getting some value back. And so that's that's the difference, is that you're showing people that they're worth it. If you're just trying to get, honestly, I mean, think about it. How hard did you work in high school? And there are some people that worked incredibly hard, and because they knew that high school was their ticket out. That if they worked really hard in high school, then they could go on to whatever else they were doing, whether it's sports, or whether it was college, or whatever it was. And if that was their ticket out. But honestly, I'll tell you, to me, I had to work a job during high school, and I got my acceptance letter sometime early in my junior year of high school for college. And there wasn't much. They didn't say I had to keep a certain grade point average or whatever. They had kind of accepted my application, and so I just, it was free. I was just there hanging out until the end. As long as I graduated, I was going on to college, and I was out. And so, this says, capitalism is freely giving your money in exchange for something of value. Socialism is taking your money against your will and shoving something down your throat that you never asked for. And so, it honestly is the same type of deal with what you did in, how you were in school. It was free. I had to be there, so I was there. I didn't care a ton about the education they were giving me, because honestly, I learned quickly, and I didn't want to sit there and do busy work. I was beyond that. I needed to, I was already working a job that was giving me money. And the school, I was spending 8 hours a day not making any money at it. So, what was it there for? But I went to culinary school, and, because I was paying for it, because I had chosen to be there, because that was the field I had chosen to be in. I worked incredibly hard at it, um, and graduated incredibly high in my class. I'm not gonna say that I was the best, but I did graduate pretty high in my class, and people knew me in my class as a hard worker and somebody that could get the job done. So, when it came to getting jobs, I could get a job. I got a job out of the field, out in the field. And, there were people who had troubles getting jobs because they didn't work hard and they weren't known for that. And when the dean talked to these different jobs that were out there getting us set up, they weren't part of, he wouldn't recommend them. And so it's just a different mindset. It's a mindset that, nothing's given to you. And, honestly, with Honest Abe and me and even Jay Boots, Peyton, Lady D even, we worked hard for everything we have. And, the more and more you look at, where your hard earned dollars go, the more you realize that the government's not working hard for what it's got. Government's not working hard to help you in any way. They aren't getting you. They just, what do they provide? You know, if you can comment or send me an email about, you know, 10 things they provide, then I would be surprised because you can almost barely say that they provide security, which the government is supposed to. That's the one thing that they're supposed to. They're supposed to provide you security, and be they're supposed to be the security force. They're supposed to provide you with security force. So a police force, a whatever, but that's it. That's honestly the main credo of having a government is to provide you safety and security. So if that safety and security means like this country is a big country, it has a lot of resources. It has um, honestly one of the greatest things is the Constitution it has. But if people want to take over your country or want to come in and be part of, want to change your lifestyle, then your country has the responsibility to keep you safe. And with the open border in the South, you can pretty much all but, you can say that they're not doing their job. So, I don't know. It just the more and more that I see it, the more and more I push into it, the more it upsets me how much, we have no control over. For one, we have very little control over where our money goes anymore. Because like I said, about half of it, I mean, if you look at rent rates even here in Ohio, which are low compared to a lot of places, to rent my house is almost 2.5 times my mortgage. And 3 years ago, I could get a house at a bit smaller for a little less than my mortgage on rent. So, an article here that says a hobbit bone was discovered. Archaeologists have discovered the tiny arm bone on the Indonesian island of Flores, belonging to the smallest ancient human species on record. The finding helps shed light on the evolution of the Homo florinesian, yeah, Nesius, an early relative of the ancient humans. The 700,000-year-old incomplete fossil measures 3.5 inches long and makes up the upper arm bone known as the humerus. They're nicknamed the hobbits due to their diminutive size, stood at roughly 3.5 foot tall, and coexisted with unique island fauna such as the pygmy elephants, rabbit-sized rats, and Komodo dragons. Are they sure they found a person or, a piece of an arm, or was it like a dog bone? The discovery of the bone and other fossils suggests that they underwent significant body size reduction in their evolutionary history due to the isolated environment and the limited resources on Flores, a phenomenon known as island dwarfism. Which, if you think about that, that actually goes against all evolution in general. Like, if the strongest survive, and that means that you're always getting bigger. I mean, you can even say that from the 40s. If you look at the uniforms and things of military men, and as just like a catalyst or a standing point, we are so much bigger now than we were even then. And it's not just bigger around, we're taller. The average height back then was like 5'6", 5'8". Um, and now you would say the average height's about 6 foot, close to 6 foot, maybe 5'11" to 6 foot. And so, even that, so to go, to get a dwarfism because you're not like, unless, yeah, I don't see the way unless it's the weakest of the species are the ones that are having, are reproducing. You would think that, even the biggest dwarf would have another big dwarf type deal. I don't know. That's just me. I'm just just one big old American talking about dwarfism. So, um, again, have you guys followed the Olympics? I've been watching a little bit of it. That 100 meter, finding 8 guys. That eighth place was 9 seconds, 9.91 seconds, and you got eighth place in 100-meter dash. I mean, every single person ran under a 10. It was a heck of a race, and just like this is knowing the rules. You know, everybody's like, "Oh, his foot was across. His foot was across." Well, the rule is his body was across, because at one time they had his foot. They had whoever crossed the finish line, no matter what. And people were literally like diving. They were throwing their bodies across the line. Well, when you're running at somewhere around 20, 21, 22, 23 miles an hour, 24 miles an hour, and you die, like that, let's preserve the person and make it an intelligent deal. Kind of, like horses or whatever. It's just easier to be able to like see the nose, and honestly, sometimes there are ties, where the person is just within millions or hundreds of millions apart, and you can't split them. And so, but yeah, that 100 meters, if you haven't seen it, just to see such a great race. I mean, just like everybody was like right there. The winner won like 8 millionths of a second. Right? Yeah, I think it was 0.008. So 8 millionths of a second faster than the next place guy. Looks like OpenAI co-founder John Schulman departs the company. He's going to join the rival Anthropic. Schulman says move allows him to return to more of a hands-on technical work. Some people just like to do the work more. The company gets too big, you got to run the company day to day. And he's been making announcements like that for a while now. New electronic sensor mimics the feeling of water droplets on the skin, may allow robots and advanced prosthetics to replicate the feeling of wetness. Okay. I mean, I saw the Terminator movies. I saw the Matrix. I'm out, but maybe that's a good thing. Pandas are returning to the San Diego Zoo for the first time in 5 years. And I remember we even commented about this, that the Chinese had 100 or a 50-year deal about it or something, 100-year deal, 2019, and it came up, and people were saying, well, why don't we just keep them? Blah blah blah. And yeah, so San Diego Zoo, as Americans will soon meet the first pandas the zoo has had since 2019. The arrival of pandas is not just a treat for visitors, but is also a symbol of decades-long U.S.-China relations. So we're basically getting from China again. Um, and they were like, the last time we just basically rented them. Yeah, it says first pandas who made their home in the U.S. arrived at Washington, D.C. National Zoo in 1972. They were a gift to the First Lady, Pat Nixon, after a historic visit to China with President Richard Nixon that helped establish diplomatic relations between the country. From then on, 50 years of panda diplomacy helped boost the panda population and their popularity with millions of adoring fans watching every tumble, snow day, and birth. China owns the pandas and typically leases them out for 10-year terms at $1 million per day per pair. Oh no, per year. Sorry, that $1 million per day would be crazy. $1 million per year per pair. So two pandas go for about $10 million, leasing them for a year or for 10 years. Sorry. So about $500,000 a year for each panda. So $5 million for their lifetime, 10 to 20 years lifespan. Yeah. But we've had increased tension with Beijing, and the West China appeared to be pulling back. They started pulling back the bears as leases expired. A recent signal from Chinese President Xi Jinping indicated a thawing of icy panda relations, and he's raised hopes his country would start sending pandas to the U.S. again after he and Joe Biden convened in North China for the first face-to-face meeting in a year, pledged to try to reduce tensions and continue their cooperation. China is so weak at this point. They gave the world an epidemic. They lied about their population censuses. There is also some talk about them not having any kind of actual money, that their economy is weakening because, for one, we put some sanctions on, just like, not sanctions, but we put tariffs on them, so that more things came in from the U.S., or we bought more U.S. things. Things coming from China was more expensive. Thank you, Donald Trump. Too bad that pretty much got repealed about the second that Biden got in office. But he had a good 4 years, I think, except for the COVID. But yeah, so good thing. Pandas are back. We're working with China again. Love it. Sending them $10 million. So great. So great. Well, with that, I think this one is over. If you have someone with any kind of illness, mental illness, or any kind of issue that holds them back, try to understand. Let's just try to be an understanding population. Even I know in my time that I'm not always the most understanding, and so it's just something I've tried to practice more over the years. Is just trying to understand, and with all that. So if you could support us, in the comments here, you'll see our link to support. $2 a month. You get some extra podcasts. I get on and do an update from time to time. You'll also, Moggs is going to get on here next week and record us a podcast. And so part of that will be on the podcast, also on the behind the paywall. And so just get on there, get us, it's just a little help. If you can't help us, like, share, follow, all the good stuff. We appreciate you listening, and remember to follow, like, and share the Why I'm Angry podcast across all social media platforms and anywhere you get your podcasts. The Why I'm Angry podcast ends now.